Hey, it's Coach Taylor from SmarterTeamTraining.com. If you are a coach or a parent listening to this show, I'm sure the conversation about leadership has come up in your huddles, in your coaches' talks, or even in your household. And I'll be honest with you, I actually had a whole bunch of coaches over the winter break here just ask questions about how can we develop leadership within our team. And I'm not just talking about leadership from the captain standpoint, but also from leadership within the team, from the person who doesn't have the C in the chest all the way up to the head coach. And it just takes a special person who wants to just show that they're willing to lead and actually go about leading and actually putting it into action. So I actually, just looked around for different people and tried to see if I could find a good question to ask and then hopefully lead to a better question and eventually an answer. And the name Jeff Janssen kept coming up. And I got a chance to Google him out here when we had a little bit of downtime, and I shot him an email, and I was very lucky to get an email right back from the guy. I'll give him kudos and fire him back almost instantly. And I said, after about 2 or 3 emails back and forth, I said, man, I got to get you on the radio show. And again, the good ones will find time. The good ones will make time to give back to those who reach out to them and ask just solid questions and hopefully lead to better conversations. And so, Jeff, man, I really appreciate you being on the phone here with me. Again, you and I have never met in person, but just the conversation leading up to the show via email and the conversation we had here prior to the show, I'm looking for outstanding content and a very intriguing conversation, my man.
Well, I am as well. I really appreciate this opportunity and value that you give back to so many coaches. So hopefully we can give them some value here today.
Jeff, man, I know you sent me the bio like I asked in the email, and I know you've been on top of everything that I sent you. So I want to know a little bit more about the outside of that bio, man. I mean, where does your passion come from the field or for helping others or just what gets you kind of fired up in the morning to really come to work and really help others achieve greatness?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a sign right now in my office, and I put this up when I designed my office, and it just says, developing the world's next generation of leaders. And that's really what I feel like my mission and purpose is in life, is to really help leaders develop. Obviously, in the sports world, it's a world that I've always loved and been a part of, but what's great for me is I get to work with certainly a lot of college students that they're going to use these leadership skills while they're at college and hopefully help their teams win some championships here and there. But they've got 40 or 50 years that they can go out and really use these leadership skills with their families, their schools, their businesses, their nonprofits, and that's probably the most gratifying thing for me as a kid maybe who went through one of our programs 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, sending a note and saying, hey, all the stuff you talked about with our Leadership Academy, I'm now applying here in my job. So it's really those kind of stories and those kind of experiences that I feel like I'm helping to seed the world of leaders who are going to really make a difference in all corners of the planet.
I really do believe that through sports we learn a lot of life lessons, and I think leadership has to be one of them as we develop. And it could be leaderships in many different formats, on and off the court, in pressure situations. Sometimes you just need to be a leader and put your arm around somebody and tell them you love them. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that a leader can lead or be present with their leadership skills. My question here is, how can a coach ensure that they're getting the most out of their leadership throughout their team from top to bottom?
Yeah, I think it's really something just like physical skills and strength skills is you have to invest some time into it. I joke a lot of times that a lot of coaches use the magic 8-ball theory of leadership development, and basically they go into the season and kind of shake that magic 8-ball and say, are we going to have good leaders this year? And sometimes it says yes, sometimes it says no, sometimes it says maybe, and a lot of them leave it to chance. And what we've really done over the last 10 years especially is rather than leaving those important leadership skills to chance, we've actually put together a program that helps coaches teach their athletes what it means, number one, to be a leader by example, because that's where all leadership starts. If you can't be a leader by example, you're not going to have other people follow you. And then once you're a good leader by example, then you can start branching out into being more of that vocal leader and that voice and that presence for the rest of the team to help them stay on track. So it is really something that, unfortunately, today's kids, a lot of times, because they grow up in a very parent-organized youth sports, which is great in a lot of ways, but a lot of kids don't play out in the backyard that much anymore, where they kind of learn all those leadership skills naturally. A lot of times adults are doing those leadership things for them. So sadly, I see a lot of college students that just are really confused or unsure about how to lead, and I guess that's why I have a job, is that there's a lot who really need to learn those skills, and sometimes they haven't learned them along the way.
I've been around a lot of successful teams, athletes, coaches, and I think from top to bottom, if you're going to have leaders lead or require them to lead in key moments of the game, you have to have confidence and a consistent message, in my opinion. I want to know if there's some strategies that we can really embrace throughout the program or the team, or and I don't mind if we talk about a youth level team, a high school, a college program, or even that are pros. I mean, is there a particular strategy to use to ensure that my team's leaders are consistent and confident?
Yeah, I think you definitely need to focus on that leading by example. We break that down into four main things. If you're going to be a great leader by example, number one, you've got to have some of the best commitment on the team. And one of the telltale ways that I do that is I tell a person, hey, look at your team, and you need to be one of the top 3 hardest workers on the team. If you are not one of the top 3 hardest workers on the team, you probably are not going to have that leadership credibility with the rest of the team and the coaching staff. So one way is to make sure you are bringing it every single day and modeling that work ethic. So that's one. The confidence one you talked about as well, not only confidence in yourself as an athlete, but confidence in yourself as a leader. And if you don't have that confidence, you're not going to speak up during those critical times, and you're certainly not going to hold other people accountable if you don't have some confidence in your leadership skills. Third one is composure. When the stuff is hitting the fan, and it's going to hit the fan a lot with adversity and injuries and umpires and referees and weather conditions and you name it, a lot of times it's the leaders that people are going to look to, and you've got to be that person who's going to be able to weather those storms of adversity, maintain your poise and composure, and know that there's going to be a brighter day ahead or a brighter quarter ahead for you as well. And then last but not least, character. A lot of times leaders are not only looked to do what they're doing in their sport, but they're also being watched what they do away from the court and away from the field, and what they're doing in the classroom and the weight room and in the community and on campus. And all those things either build your platform of leadership or erode your platform of leadership. So those are 4 things that we really have leaders take a look at, number one, in themselves, because they've got to be able to lead themselves effectively before we even want them opening up their mouths trying to lead somebody else.
When you talk about leadership within a team, the conversation that often comes up is, can it be developed, or is it something that we have to go get, as in when we have to recruit, when we have to identify players who are making or not making the team? And again, it might not be the best player on the team who is the best leader. Again, it just depends on the makeup of the individual on the team and how everything kind of fits. And I'm trying to figure out in my mind, how everything kind of fits, so we can do a better job of selecting people who are going to be successful and help the team and put the team first. The we is greater than the me type personality. Can a leader be developed, or is it just something that someone has?
I definitely feel like a leader has been developed, and we've actually proved it. I mean, one of the things that I do when I work with a team is I don't want to just have these smile sheets and, yeah, was this good, but I want to see, hey, where are you as a leader when you start this program, and where are you as a leader when you end this program? And much like you guys do in the strength training world, you need to show actual results of, hey, if you're investing some time in this training and in this program, you're going to see improvements down the road. So what we do with all of our Leadership Academies is we do a pre-test with the kids themselves, and we do a pre-test with the coaches. So they use 24 questions, rank themselves as a leader by example, and rank themselves as a vocal leader, and we do that on the front end, and then we also do one on the back end to see, do you feel like you have changed or improved? And what's really great for us, and certainly gratifying, is 95% of the kids who go through our program show improvements, and the improvement that we see is usually about a 15% improvement over a year's time, which, you know, it may not sound like a whole lot, but if you've got a couple of different kids improving by 15% in their leadership skills, being more vocal, holding people more accountable, maintaining their composure, it has a tremendous ripple effect on the rest of the team. So it is something that through our academies we've actually documented that you can improve leadership skills. Certainly you're going to want to look for those kids who are shown those skills early, because it's much better to teach somebody who has, you know, some of those skills early on. But, you know, all of our kids have shown, or as at least 95% of our kids have shown some improvement over time by really making leadership development much more conscious and much more practical for them.
over the years, I've become more of a believer in relationships win championships. And again, going back to this leadership concept, I think we do a great job of teaching leaders how to be leaders when it's very comfortable for leadership to show itself. But when a mistake is made, I think it's sometimes we have to practice how to be good leaders in those moments. Is there a strategy for helping an athlete or even a coach or even a parent, for that matter, keep their composure after a mistake is made so we can really identify who are the leaders and the best people to really help us get through those tough times?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the analogies that we use, and I picked this up from one of my mentors, Ken Ravizzi, who's been a great sports psychologist and has a great book called Heads Up Baseball, but he uses a simple traffic light analogy that when you're on, you're composed and you're thinking clearly and you're pretty confident that's a green light. And there's going to be some other times when you're starting to get a little bit distracted, a little bit nervous, a little bit frustrated, that's a yellow light. And then finally, there are just some times when you've kind of lost it, and that's that red light. So what we really try to do is help athletes understand, hey, how do you get yourself into a green light going into competition? We know there's going to be some adversity and some frustration that's going to go on. That yellow light may flash on a little bit, but what are you going to do to get yourself back into that green light? And simple things we talk about, I talk about the 3 Ps of proper focus: the present, getting your mind back into the present moment, letting go of the past, not worrying about the future. The positive, focusing on the positive things you want to execute and have happen versus all of the negative stuff you want to avoid. And then last but not least, the 3rd P, the process, taking care of doing the little things that if you do all those little things and execute those well, it's going to lead to the outcome that you want to have. So if you can focus yourself in on those 3 Ps, the present, the positive, the process, or if you see a teammate getting into a yellow light and focusing them on those, a lot of times you can avoid that red zone, because once you get in the red zone, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. You're giving the competition away because you're not where you need to be mentally. So it's simple things like that, simple analogies like that, and the 3 Ps of proper focus that help both leaders and the rest of the team overcome the natural and inevitable adversity they're going to face throughout the course of a season.
Different experiences motivate or inspire leadership in many different ways, through positive experiences and also, in my opinion, the fear of potentially failure. They want the team to be successful because they don't want to lose. I mean, can the fear of failure affect an athlete in a positive way, or is it only in a negative way?
I think it's really both, and a lot of it really has to do how the athlete frames the situation. Certainly, if you're going up against a good opponent and you're kind of worried about how you may look, that may give you a lot more impetus, hopefully during the off season, to say, hey, I want to really match up and maybe even beat this really good opponent or this really good team. So it's going to drive you and hopefully give you some motivation to get better. Carl Overbeck, who is the played for the soccer team, the U.S. national soccer team, they always talked about one of the teams was Sweden that actually beat them, and they would put up pictures of Sweden over the summer to inspire them to kind of say, okay, we're working that much harder when Sweden might not be. And those kind of motivational things in the off season certainly propelled them to put in that time and put in that training, so next time they played Sweden, they felt like they had deserved success more. On the same token, though, there are some times when people, if they get really, really worried about the outcome, it can overwhelm them a little bit and can debilitate them and really destroy their confidence. So I think a lot of times that's something, obviously, the coaches and leaders are working on with people, is to frame the situation like it's something that, yeah, you do have the ability to handle, but yes, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some investment, and may take some adjustment in your strategy as well.
Athletic trainers and strength conditioning coaches, I think, even sports psychologists and that kind of support staff, I think they all have a unique role where they get a chance to sit down with just the coaches and then just the players, and they get a chance to hear the different messages that are going on. And again, successful teams have very consistent messages, whether they're in a team setting or when they're in there being interviewed by themselves almost. I mean, how can I help a program, a team, a player, a coach maintain a consistent message throughout their staff, throughout their captains, and then down into the players?
Yeah, I think that is absolutely huge, as you said. And one of the things that I've really been fascinated with over the last 2 years are championship cultures and what makes them so. And in doing so and looking at a lot of the championship teams that I've had a chance to work with, I kind of saw 6 main things over and over again. And the first one was credible leaders from the top, whether it's an athletic director or a general manager. Certainly the coaches and the entire coaching staff are big in that, but also then the captains and the leaders on the team. So there's multiple layers of credible leadership that are all on the same page together. I think the second one then is a clear and compelling vision. What is it that we're trying to go after collectively as a team? How clear are we about that? And even more importantly, how juiced and compelled are we about that? So that's really important. I think if you look at the really successful programs, they have a set of core values that they stick to come heck or high water. And a lot of times they're written down. Occasionally they aren't, but certainly they're known. But I think there's a set of core values that everyone embraces and really gets behind. Coming from those core values are standards of behaviors. There's a certain standard and way that we are going to do things in our program, and that is expected, and that is communicated to every single person on the team. And when somebody falls below that, the layers of leadership are going to step up and say, that's not how we do things here. We expect more from you. Another one then is a committed and unified team. Everyone is really bought into that vision. They're bought into those values. They really embrace those standards, and that just really helps create that culture. And then last but not least, as you were talking about, what I call aligned systems. So every system, whether it's who do you attract to your program, who do you recruit, how do you communicate, who do you start, how do you evaluate your team, who do you make your leaders, succession planning, all those different things are aligned with that vision, with those values, with those standards. So when you look at really, really good teams, they invest the time to create that kind of culture that everyone is bought into. And then what's great about that is it attracts more people who want to be a part of that culture and actually repels people who don't want to be a part of that culture. So what's nice is it's the old tradition never graduates. You set up a long-term system to build not just a team for 1 year, but a program for multiple years.
I've been, unfortunately, around some teams and directly and indirectly that has had a lot of talent on the squad or an unbelievable coaching staff and that type of thing, and there's just a lack of trust. I felt that really limited how fast that the team was going to reach their own potential, and then sometimes you just never get over that hump, and you just underachieve as a team. I mean, how can I go about developing trust amongst teammates, from coaches to players, and then also from coaches to coaches?
I think that's huge, and a lot of trust, I think, gets down to communication. And one of the things that I highly recommend for teams is to do what I call as a captain's weekly monitoring sheet. And it's something that I have in my team captain's manual, but basically it just gives people an opportunity to kind of look at, okay, what are the highlights of what's going on right now? What's not going quite so well right now? What lessons can we learn? And then what I have people do is kind of rate, hey, where's our team right now? Are we really unified or are we kind of conflicted? Are we really fresh or are we fatigued? Are we really focused or are we kind of distracted? So what I have the leaders of the team do is sit down and fill out the sheet, takes 2 or 3 minutes or so, and they kind of give their perspective on it. And then the coaches will do that. And what I have them do is meet for 15 minutes at the beginning of the week, and everybody kind of shares their perspectives. And 80% of the time, everybody's going to be roughly in the same kind of area, but probably 20% of the time, you're going to have and see something maybe very differently than another person on the team. So this gives you a chance as a leadership team to kind of talk through some of those multiple perspectives and get everybody on the same page so that we can build that sense of trust in addressing any of these concerns or building upon any of these successes that we have for the week. So I think if you invest that time with open, honest, candid communication, I think you're really going to develop a sense of trust at all layers of the team.
When you finally reach that stressful point in a game where leadership either stands up or steps back, I think we need to practice strategies to hopefully help our young men and women or coaches staffs, and again, or our parents even, really help individuals get through that? I mean, are there strategies that we can use and really, again, practice, even if it is literally at practice during a game? I mean, if something were to happen that were to kind of put us off stride, if you want to call it that, is there a process that we should be going through to really help reinforce the leadership and regain our confidence so we can get kind of shape back up and get rock and rolling again?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that I often ask leaders and coaches what are those one or two situations that your team has a hard time recovering from? So it could be, poor officiating call, or it could be a travel delay or a rain delay, or it could be something where one of our key athletes is either injured or having to be out for some reason. So we have them pre-identify what are those situations where we tend to really struggle, and we tend to get, to use that traffic light analogy again, in a yellow, if not a red. So we discuss what those are. Hey, yeah, last season this really tended to get in our head. So rather than just identify those, we take it the next step then. Okay, leaders, what are you going to do when that situation arises so that, number one, you stay in a green light, and then number two, what are you going to do to refocus the team back on track? So in some sports, obviously, there are some small little breaks in the game or dead balls and things like that. We really talk about how important it is for the leader to be visible and vocal during those times and know what to say to get people back on track. And a lot of that may go back to those 3 P's of proper focus. Hey, let's get back to the present. That last play's over. Yeah, it sucked, but we've got this one right now. Positive. What are we going to focus on? Yeah, we don't want to do this and we don't want to do that, but what is it that we do want to do? And then getting them back to the process. So we really kind of script out and have them practice what are you going to say or do with the team, with your teammates, so that you can help keep them calm, keep them composed, and keep them focused. So we do that on the front end, but then also after a competition, we do a post-competition analysis where the leaders will sit down and, just like watching video where you're kind of seeing, okay, yeah, we should have done that strategy a little differently, or I should have used that technique a little bit differently, we will also look at, hey, leadership-wise, here was a moment where a leader really stepped up, and what did you do and what did you say to kind of turn that momentum your way? At the same point, we'll use it as a teaching tool. Hey, we really should have had a leader step up when that other team went on a run and we didn't have anybody be visible and vocal. So next time we get in that situation, what are you going to do to step up? So we do it on the front end and we do it on the back end so that hopefully that's much more on their minds and what role they can play to help themselves and their team stay on track during that adversity.
When we're going through the process of developing leaders and working on leadership skills, do they have to occur at practice on the court or on the field for that matter? And then my other question is, when we're programming them into a yearly plan or trying to implement them into a team environment, is it something that we have to do each practice, each week, or is it something we just do for the off season? I mean, can you kind of walk me through that process of how we start to implement leadership skills into our program?
Yeah, I definitely think leadership development is an ongoing process. You may do some more formal stuff and some more classroom stuff, maybe more in the preseason. One thing that I did is I developed a book called The Team Captain's Leadership Manual, and it's got a 10-module plan that a lot of coaches will sit down on a weekly basis with their leaders, and that is best done in the off-season or preseason because obviously you're still in that kind of time where maybe things aren't quite as stressful. So you can put in kind of that programming and that plan early on in that off season or during the preseason. But then, as I said, obviously as things are going on in the season, you need to have those weekly check-ins with those leaders. And that's where that captain's weekly monitoring sheet comes in, is where you have the key leaders coming together, analyzing where the team might be, and talking about, hey, who's struggling this week and what can we do as a leadership team to reach out to that person and get them back into the fold. And, hey, as we look ahead at this coming week, what do we need to prepare for or guard against as a leadership team? So maybe we're playing a top-ranked opponent and our confidence is a little bit down, or maybe we're playing a team that nobody's really heard of, isn't that well ranked, and now we've got a lot of people who are overconfident, aren't taking their training quite as seriously because all they think they need to do is show up this week. So I think it's a combination of things, much like you probably do in strength training, where out of season you have a certain program, in season you have a certain program, postseason you have a certain program. It's the same thing with leadership development. We have different seasons that we kind of emphasize different things based on where that team might be, whether it's pre, in, or postseason.
Yes, man. If somebody was interested in actually starting to implement a leadership development program, a leadership academy into their program, in their organization, their team, again, it doesn't make a difference if it's at the youth model, the high school level, if it's at the college or even the pro level. I mean, what kind of motivational or inspirational kind of words would you have to help push them over that hump, if you wouldn't mind, to really get them to actually take action and actually try to develop leaders in their team?
Yeah, I think as you look at it, I mean, most coaches, as you look back, your best seasons probably occurred when you had some key leaders really helping you drive the culture that you wanted to have. I think coaches talk about their most frustrating seasons either when they had a lack of leadership and all of it kind of fell in the coach's lap, and it made it their job that much more, kind of difficult because they always kind of had to monitor things and police things. So it's either that lack of leadership that makes a coach's job tough, or 10 times tougher is when you've got a ringleader instead of a leader. You've got a really negative person who has maybe a stranglehold or chokehold on the team, and sadly sometimes it's one of your most talented kids. And those are, I think, for coaches and athletes and parents and administrators, some of your most difficult seasons because you saw this talent here, but it just never really got going in the right direction. It was going in the opposite direction. So one way is to look at those painful seasons and to try to avoid that by investing the time in developing good leaders. And at the other side of the coin, too, as I said earlier, I think when you look at your most successful and best seasons, you had a variety of key kids who were really bought in, and those kind of chief dominoes, if they fell in the right way, caused a lot of the rest of the team to get on board and fall in the right direction as well. So I think looking at those two situations, and then, as I said, what I did is really put together this 10-module program in our captain's manual, and it's really easy because basically the coach reads a small short chapter, the athletes read a small short chapter, there's lots of exercises and evaluations and questions. How does this relate to me? How does this relate to us? And they sit down for once a week or so for 20, 30 minutes and get on the same page about what it means to be a leader for our program and how you're going to step up and lead. So I think that's that process there, and that manual has gone so well, I'm actually going to be writing an advanced one that hopefully will be ready in the fall, just because we've had probably about 60,000 athletes go through that program and really value or gain some value from it. So I think it is worth the time, and as I said, we have shown real actual gains by investing that time as well.
Well, Jeff, man, I really appreciate taking some time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy, and I know you're inspiring greatness in a lot of people. I'm sure you heard my keyboard here as I was pecking at it with my right hand, trying to take notes as we're going, and I'm sure I'm going to follow up with a whole bunch of other questions here. If somebody was listening to this show and they wanted to catch up with what you got going on, they wanted to find out more information about how they can develop leadership or leadership programs into their organization or team, or even with their son or daughter, how could they go about reaching out to you? And can you tell me a little bit about the work you have going on now, my man?
Yeah, definitely. All of our information is available at JanssenSportsLeadership.com, and we've got a ton of articles and resources and a variety of different things there. I do a monthly blog as well, so people can sign up for that. I'm actually writing that one too right now, so that's probably the best way to check out some information. Jeff@JeffJanssen.com is my email address if people want to get a hold of me there. And we're real fortunate to go out to a variety of different schools and teams and train leaders. We've got some different programs, a leadership summit, a leadership retreat, and certainly our kind of very immersive Leadership Academies. So it is something that we love to do. We've got an amazing team of people, some of them Olympic athletes and a lot of them former college student athletes as well. So we've got just a great number of people that we get a chance to work with and would love to reach out to those who want to really develop their leadership skills.
Well, again, Jeff, thank you very much for the opportunity here to get you on the show. It's been an honor, and I'm looking forward to actually connecting several times, and hopefully this is a launching pad for us to do many things down the road. For the listeners to this show, do yourself a favor. Reach out to Jeff here. If anybody in this field, for that matter, inspires you to ask a question, just pick up the phone, shoot an email, send something on Twitter, a Facebook message. Just reach out to people to ask questions, and I'll give you two that you should be asking. What do you know now that you wish you knew then, and what has worked for you? For me, I should have been finding out more information about how we can develop character, the sports psychology, the leadership aspect of programs. I think there is a ton of value in our field as strength and conditioning coaches, as physical therapists, as personal trainers, as athletic trainers, as coaches, as parents, as players on the team. I mean, if you get an opportunity here and Jeff's in your area, do me a favor, reach out to him, shake his hand, and just ask two questions. What do you know now that you wish you knew then? And what can I do to even help my team succeed? I mean, you can come up with your own two questions for that matter, but just enjoy the opportunity to always be a work in progress. And again, Jeff, man, I'm hoping to keep in touch here, my man.
That sounds great. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I really appreciate you giving back to just so many in the sporting world. I think having the opportunity to learn from a variety of people is just the best way to go. So thanks for all you do as well.
I hope all is well, man. Let's keep in touch, my man.
Definitely.